all employees essentially the same? A subset of that is, even the same employee, me or you, are we essentially the same throughout our working life cycle? I am tempted to think we are not. And we are going to see how employee experience helps us to understand how employees might be different and how the same employee can also evolve. We can also change ourselves. What we want today, what we need today, what we needed yesterday, what we might need 3 or 5 years hence. So my second question was about if all employees are essentially the same. Again, I'll leave the answer to you. My third question is, are employee satisfaction surveys the right tool? Are employee satisfaction surveys the right tool? All this is leading us into what we are getting into. Many times we do surveys every year or every 2 years. We do surveys, but the question is, are they the right tool to use? The question you'd be asking yourself in the back is, a tool has to be fit for purpose. So ask yourself, what is the intention of doing an ESS? Then now you can come back and judge and say, is the satisfaction survey the best tool? Again, at this stage, I'm not giving any answers. I'm just giving questions. So the third question was, are employee satisfaction surveys the best tool? Ask yourself, tool forward. Ask yourself, why do we normally conduct satisfaction surveys? Then we can see how satisfactory is that tool for that purpose. The fourth and last question, guys, is how then can we make it better? How then can we make whatever we have been trying to do better? And maybe the answer to those 4 questions could be derived from this discussion that we're going to be having shortly. Now, keep those 4 questions. You are allowed to think through them, to ask them back, to respond to them. It's at your discretion. Now, let's come back to the current practice. The current practice is most organizations conduct employee satisfaction surveys. Sometimes they go by other names, like employee engagement surveys. I've seen some people call them employee net promoter surveys, which is actually a subset of the earlier surveys. I saw others doing a net promoter survey. But typically, net promoter survey is actually a subset of the engagement or the satisfaction. For the public sector, sometimes it is a requirement that every so often, 1 or 2 years, you must conduct at least 3 surveys. One of them is a satisfaction survey. Let me call it clearly, employee satisfaction survey, 1, customer satisfaction survey, 2, and 3, corruption perception survey. Those are typically required for public sector institutions. But again, I go back to our earlier questions. For what purpose were these required? If we do not interrogate the reason for why we do them, we can end up ticking boxes without achieving the aim that was there from the start. Luckily, I have been involved in a lot of these surveys myself directly. Just finalizing one this month for a major parastatal based in Nairobi, somewhere in South Sea, a government parastatal nationwide, and we are just finishing an employee satisfaction survey. But some quick things for you to know why it's working and why it's not. For example, that's the second time I was doing the survey for the same client. A few things we noted. One, the employee participation rates are falling. Less and less people are responding to the survey. Why? Again, I ask you, why would your employees find it tedious to respond to your survey? It is telling us something. Many times we forget, and I want to quickly bring us up to speed on the same, that the employment space is defined in common law as at will. What does that mean? It means that the employee and the employer have a contract which is entered into willingly, and either party can terminate it. There's a given process that is given for doing that. For example, the employee can fire the employer by resigning. The employer can fire the employee through the right procedure, whether it is disciplinary or whether it is performance-based. So people forget that either party can dissolve that union. And therefore, the employer many times takes the employee for granted. And these guys must change. And who is to change it? Me and you in HR space. We can't wait for the others to do. Even if the CEO can do it, we are the advisory arm. We have to tell them this is the right thing to do. And today we are here to discuss one of the things that we need to consider adopting and letting our CEOs know that this is the way to go. And that way, ladies and gentlemen, is called employee experience journey mapping. Why are we getting into that? Unfortunately, the satisfaction surveys are failing. People are not responding as they should. That's number one. Number two, we may not be taking their responses seriously. And number three, they assume that employees are the same, and they are not the same. So whereas they are okay and we can keep doing them and we can discuss ways of making them better, there's even a better way. So I come back before I launch into all this to say, why do we bother about all these things? Ladies and gentlemen, it is to capture what we call the voice of the employee. We want to know what the employee goes through, what the employee feels in the workplace. And we want to know how we can make it better so that they can stick with us, so that they can work better, they can produce more. There's a trend world over, it's called the great quitting. Many people are opting out of the employment space. Especially the younger generations, they're simply refusing to be employed. Why? Because the employment space is not offering what they need. They want unique considerations, but we want to treat them as if they are all the same to any other employee. And that is where we go wrong. And the way out and the tool to use so that we can start looking at employees a little into more detail is through what is called employee experience journey mapping, which is our talk today. I am one of you. I am a consultant. I'm a member of HR. I'm a licensed practitioner, and I'm only here to discuss and have a discussion. So please do not hold back. Where you disagree, you have a question or comment, that is respectfully welcome, and we can enjoy this. So let's talk about the employee experience journey mapping. This is actually borrowed from the other side. Which is the other side? The customer side. Many times the customer is said to be king. And therefore, there was a lot of energy devoted to customer service until the employee was orphaned almost, just like the boy child in our social environment, where there's so much emphasis on one side until the other side suffers. So we have been talking customer is king, customer is always right, customer. And then until we forgot that before the customer, there is the employee. So this concept of journey mapping was originally developed to address customer concerns, where it is called customer experience journey mapping. But now we are adopting the same, and we are using them to address the employee, which is another segment of people. So we are calling it employee experience journey mapping. So how is it used? Why is it used? The employee experience journey mapping is used to improve, again, get me clearly, to improve the overall employee experience, the overall, and when I say overall, hold me to it, because there is a concept we use in HR called the employee life cycle, where a junior employee just starting in today has different needs with a senior employee almost exiting, or a mature employee now in an executive position. So when we talk of overall, we want to think of all those categories of employees. And this is how this is useful. When we use the journey mapping, it allows us to see all those kind of employees, how they work through the employment space. And remember my first question, if the employment has to be a space at all. For example, I am doing this from home today. Am I still not working? Yes, I am working. Can I still be an employee? Yes, I can be. So we need to expand and see if the old concepts are still valid or they need to be improved.
Hey Amos, we have lost you. I think Amos may be experiencing some network challenges, but let us give him some time.
Good afternoon, Mike, and good afternoon, fellow HR profs.
Hey, good afternoon, Ojoro.
I hope we are all safe where we are.
We are safe. Maybe on your end.
I'm well, not working today though, working from home.
Okay. We are waiting for a trainer to rejoin back. I think there was a network issue. And then we continue with the training session.
Yeah, thank you for organizing. We are following. I just wanted to break the silence. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, sawa. Asante.
Hello, guys.
I'm Amos Oth. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very sorry for the interruption. My power had just gone. But can we proceed, please?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry once again. So we were talking about the employee experience journey mapping. The idea is to get to know the employee as an individual person. 1. 2, to get to know the employee as a unique person who is evolving. The employee you knew last year may not be the same employee this year, may not be the same employee next year. So the idea is to know employees discreetly in terms of kila mtu kivyake, and then as an evolving being that does not keep the same. So how we interest them, how we approach them, how we ensure that they are well taken care of has to also evolve to keep up. So let's go to the other slide, please. So we are here to talk about what is the employee journey mapping and what is in it for you. Why would you want to know about it? Why would you want to take the trouble to learn and to try to apply it? So this is the entire gist of the talk today. What is it? And why it is important for you and me as HR practitioners. Next, please. Good. I already said this, but I will repeat. 1, we are learning this from the customer experience space. There is something called the voice of the customer, but there's a counterpart called the voice of the employee. The wisdom here is, it is not enough to make the customer happy. We must take care of the employee as well, because the employee is our interface with the customer. Whether we are directors or shareholders, we need the employee to get across the value proposition to the customer. So if we neglect the employee, at the end of the day, the customer will not be satisfied. So the original idea was that there are emotional reactions to moments. Please remember that. Emotional reactions to moments, whether for the customer or for the employee. And because we are emotional beings, we are beings with feelings. If we tap into those feelings, if we manage those feelings, then we can satisfy somebody more fully. And that is why one of the key concerns now in HR is called emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? It is a whole idea of learning to recognize and to work with emotions, to make sure they are positive and self-reinforcing, to make sure that they contribute to strategy and not the other way around. Now, those moments are described in terms of what are called touch points. Touch points. So what is a touch point? It's a point of contact, whether between the organization and the customer or between the organization and its employees. There are points of contact, and these are what are called touch points. So remember, first thing, there are emotional reactions to moments. Start asking yourself, which are the key moments for an employee? Moments, nodes. And then 2, how then do we ensure that those moments are memorable, are satisfactory? Because that is where the dissatisfaction starts from. So there are what are called touch points. Now, the totality of all these touch points, whether for the customer or for the employee, is what we deal with when we talk of the journey mapping, the experience journey mapping. For example, if you're a buyer of a product or a service, your journey is, you have a need for that. You recognize a need in you. Your journey has started. There are feelings that are evoked in you. Then the second thing is you start to search. As you search for something that will satisfy your need, there are feelings that also accompany you. If it's electronics, you look at LG, you look at Sony, you look at Samsung, and there are feelings evoked when you look at those brands, for example. That is a search. At the end of it all, you make a decision and you make the buy decision. You buy. There are feelings involved in that buying decision. there is a price, there is the after sales, for example. All those things end up. After that, there is a service, which can be in two ways. The service lifetime of the good of our product you bought and the support that comes with it. So the idea is there are emotional moments when, and two, there are touch points, which are called points of contact between the employer and the employee. So we are saying, and this is bolded here, the employee journey is everything that a worker experiences, sees, and feels during their tenure at a company. Everything that the employees experiences, everything they see, everything they feel, from the time they join you as an intern or attaché to the time they exit, all that is their lifetime experience. And there are other ways of calculating this. If you go to the metrics side, there is something called employee lifetime value, which can be calculated in dollar terms. But this is different. However, the concept is the same. So this employee journey map can help us to uncover employee experience issues, and then we can work out possible solutions. Next, please. Now, why are we bothering to do this, guys? I already mentioned earlier, there is something called the great quitting. People are leaving the workplace in droves. They're simply not buying. They are not boarding. They are rejecting. Why are they rejecting? Some things that we think are enough are not enough for them. Two, even the employees who have not left are there barely for the salary. They do the bare minimum not to be fired. They happen around, kama ni kubonyeza, they bonyeza, and then they hang around, but they are not engaged. One of the reasons we know employees are not engaged is we do the survey, and the survey response rate, which is normally calculated statistically, keeps falling. Why is it falling? Employees are saying, this thing we filled it last year, we didn't see a change. The same things we said were not right are still happening. The same things we complained about were not addressed. So why would we bother? So they stopped giving their voice. And we needed, if you remember what I said, why do we do all these things? To capture the voice of the employee. So when they stop talking, because we are not responsive, we are already losing the game. So we want to ensure that employees who stay, one, are engaged. Two, they stay, they don't leave. According to statistics, and this is in your last paragraph there, the third one, high performers, the attrition rate is as high as 47%. That's like half. Many of your best employees will leave before you want them to go. Why? I go back to my earlier comments, which we said the employment space or contract is at will. It is entered into willingly, and either party can dissolve it. You cannot only fire the employee, but the employee can also leave. And when they leave on their own volition, it's actually more disruptive for you and me as HR practitioners, because we know the literature that it is harder to train and induct a new employee, the time it takes, the money it takes for them to come to the old performance level. It can take a year. So we want these guys to stay, and not only stay, we want them to stay and be engaged so that they can work at their best, if not beyond. And the only way we can do that is if we understand their evolving needs as they evolve in their professional life and even in their age as human beings. The kind of things and the kind of feelings they have keep changing. And one way of helping us to track this is what we're discussing today. What is it called? Employee experience journey mapping. Next, please. Now, first of all, if you want to do this, guys, you need to change your mindset. It's not just about ticking a box or just about reading Armstrong or these other books and you come and do. We have to completely change the way we think and the way we approach these things. What do we mean? There are at least 4 indicators that we need to pay attention to in our mindset as we try to do the journey mapping. One is, if we do the journey mapping, we are only facilitators. We are not leading. No, the employee is leading, but we are facilitating. We want to see, we want to hear them tell us what works at what point, what does not work at what point. So we need to have the mindset of a facilitator. We enable. We are not subject matter experts. Don't bring all the HR you studied when you do this. Be willing to be led. And we are learning this with our younger people, the so-called Gen Zs as well. That sometimes what we think we are telling them is not wrong, but it's not working for them. Then the next challenge is, can we listen? So what works for you? I was doing a training just about 2 weeks with another client, and says some of the younger people come and they have rasta. Their hair is very long and they have dreads. And if you tell them dreads is wrong, you lose them. So what did they do? One of the HR people told them, look here, guys, here we are safety first. And this hair is a safety hazard because it can get stuck in the machinery we have around here and you can get hurt. For the sake of safety, we are asking that you cut your hair. And that worked. But traditionally, we could have been tempted to tell them, we don't do rasta here. You either shave or you go. Then they will choose to go, but we need them. So we want to be facilitators. We are not experts in our mind. Number two, please know the journey mapping is a collaborative journey. We are working together with our employees to understand, to grow, and to learn. So it is not me telling you or you telling me, but it's a co-creation. That is the word, co-creation. We work together as we try to understand and evolve together. So it's a mindset thing. The first is we are facilitators. The second is it's a collaborative journey. The third is it is a human-centered approach. You know, sometimes we forget that HR is about people, not processes, not systems, not goals, not KPIs. First and foremost, people. All those other things are correct, are important, but the foundation is the people. And we are saying that when we do the journey mapping, we do not, first of all, talk of all those systems and processes. We talk about the people themselves. What are their needs and what are their desires? As a young entry-level employee, what are my needs? I need to grow. I need to settle. I need to be recognized. I need to be challenged. I need to be given opportunities, for example. As a mature employee of 50 years, what are my needs? I need recognition. I need satisfaction. So my needs are different at 50 than they were at 20 or 24. So we need to understand the evolving needs of the employee and their desires as well. So this is about being centered on the employee. What are their perspectives so that we can deliver the right experience? When the employee is happy, the thesis is they will work well. If they feel adjusted and accepted, they will work well. If they feel the opposite, even if they are qualified, their productivity will go downhill. So that is the human-centered part. Number four is it is emergent. What does that mean? Emergent means it is a learning process. We are not stuck with the truisms or handed down knowledge. No, we are willing to change. You whole heard of VUCA. It's not even past VUCA. We want to be able to change with things. We want to learn as a mindset. So here we say, trust the process. We may not know the end as we start, but if we work together, we know that the solution we shall find shall be acceptable to both of us. That is the employer and the employee as well. So it is not only human-centered, it is also emergent. In other words, it is a developing story. It is a work in progress. It is a continuous learning that is not concrete, that is not solidified. Can we proceed, please? So the last thing is it's persona-based. And allow me to quickly explain a few things. So what is a persona? This is another concept we are introducing here. A persona is, of course, this is just a Latin word. It is from here that we derive the word personality. It's actually Greek, not Latin, I'm sorry. At the origin of it, a persona means a mask. A mask is a particular identity that somebody puts on for a particular purpose. I am me at home, I am a father. You are you at home, you're a father, a brother, a spouse, a sister. We have different hats, so to speak, kofia. So if you want to do employee journey mapping, you must be introduced the concept of the persona, which is the various masks, the various identities that people take at particular points in their lives. So a persona is a mask or an identity. So when you're doing the journey mapping, you will develop what are called persona profiles. It is theoretical, but it is based on practice. Your persona will have a name. Say you want to talk of a young, vibrant, new employee. That is a persona. You give him a name called Gary, or called James, or called Sheila. So you already give a name to the identity of the young, vibrant, new employee. Then you start unpacking that employee. So you give it a name, you give it a description. You say young, out of college with a university degree, currently pursuing their CHRP or accounting qualifications, very ambitious and wanting to go places. That you start developing, and you don't do it alone in your desk. You do it with your colleagues. You can quote. In other words, you can pick from them what is a typical expression. For example, I want to eventually become a CMO. CMO means, of course, Chief Marketing Officer, and I don't know what I can turn to for guidance. So this young, vibrant employee is very ambitious, but they don't know how to achieve their ambitions. All right? They're not too sure how to achieve their ambitions. So you have a name, you have a description, you have a quote, you have a picture. And again, this is tricky for our legal side. You can put a picture and then somebody sues you for it. But you can pick maybe from the internet, or you can mix and match, or you can illustrate. But you need a picture of who is the typical young, vibrant employee. How do they look like? Yellow hair, for example? Or is it golden teeth? Or is it whatever it is that works for your space, you do that. So it has a name, a description, a quote, a picture, and then there are other details such as their age, location, and job profile. They are typically maybe 20 to 27 or 20 to 24. What motivates them? Again, ask yourself, what motivates them? At 50, for example, if I am the best employee and you give me a plaque, which I put on my desk, it doesn't cut it. It doesn't touch me. I need something I can take home, something I can go to work with my family and my children. But for a young employee of 25, if you gave them a plaque and said, best employee of the year, and they put it on their desk, it touches their heart. So all is well, but we need to evolve. And it is that idea that is discussed here. And then we also need to know their goals. We already talked of their needs and their desires. Now we are talking of their goals. Where do they want to go? What are their fears? That's okay. So we are on to next. How do you then create the employee persona? You can't do the journey mapping without the persona. So how do you create it? I already mentioned something. There is something called an employee persona card or template. There is a card that gives you a guide on what you feel, and we're going to see a quick sample of the same as we continue. First and foremost, we are doing this in 6 steps so that it is more sequential. The first step, guys, if you want to develop your employee persona, is consult. Don't sit in a corner and write. No. Don't use what you know, what you think. No. Don't refer to a textbook or Google. No. Consult. Talk to your people. Typically, the people who know is marketing. Why marketing and customer experience? Because this concept was originally used in marketing and customer experience. So they already understand it better. So talk to them. Tell them, ask them, how do you build your personas? When you're segmenting, because the journey mapping is a way of segmenting employees. We are very familiar with segmenting of customers and markets, but we have not been segmenting employees. But now this concept allows us to segment employees. So this kind of employee, young, mature, this, the other, professional, we want to segment them. So then we can know what kind of personas are there, what are the pitfalls, and how then do we develop the persona. So the first step is consult and consult widely. Number two, the second step, there are two parts. As you collect the data, and you must collect data, you are allowed to go back to our old trusty friend, employee satisfaction and engagement surveys. I said earlier that I just finished a satisfaction survey, and there were falling response rates. My qualified opinion, part of that is nothing changed. Yet some things were said. So you want to go back and see what were the employees saying. At this juncture, allow me to also introduce the one called a pulse surveys, which is actually a better way of surveying than the engagement survey. What is a pulse survey? Is a quick spot check. Normally, there are at most 3 questions that you flash to employees. It can be random, you can calendarize. And every so often, you flash some 3 questions to employees. And they quickly get back to you in 3 minutes. And it tells you more than you would have taken them 30 minutes to fill an engagement survey, and they didn't say it as clearly. So we can refer to engagement surveys. We can also use what are called pulse surveys. Something I know we don't do a lot is there are what are called employee exit surveys. When somebody leaves, we should be able to give them a survey. Because somebody can be more forthright when they're leaving than when they're still here. So there should be exit surveys. Ladies and gentlemen, I am asking us to ensure that when employees leave, we have a time with them to debrief. There are also called what are called stay surveys or interviews. The people who are here. So what's making them stay? What is working, what is not? So remember, talk to colleagues, but also refer back to any other surveys you've conducted. If you have not conducted any recently, you can do a pulse survey quickly next week, because it's only 3 questions. And you can quickly assess, and it will tell you. There are also exit surveys, and there are also stay surveys. Now, the other point is to engage direct conversation with employees. How do you do that? You can have one-on-one, what are called check-ins, which are informal consultations, but you can also do focus groups. What is a focus group? You can have 8 to 12 people, and they can discuss what are the challenges, what are the issues, what are the opportunities. If it's for the younger people, it's a focus group where they're only the ones are members of that group. If it's for the older, the same. That way, you can be harvesting live information. But the trick is, again, I repeat, is to implement what you told. If you collect and then you put it in the shelf, it will come back to haunt you. They will say, we are not talking to you again, because whatever we tell you, you do not listen. And if you listen, you do not take action. So that is the second step. The third step is good, is to categorize the employees. Remember, we said we have been categorizing markets and we are categorizing customers, but now we also want to categorize. The other word to use is to segment employees. For example, and this is just an example, there are people like socializers at the workplace. There are taskers. There are people who work. There are builders. There are costers. A coster is somebody who is easygoing. You do the work, we'll take the credit. I'll contribute a little, you do the donkey work, but we are a team. And they are achievers. Achievers are the driven people. They want to be shining. They want to come out tops. And they're willing to pay the price by working harder and longer hours. There are other ways of categorizing the employees. So you are not bound by this. You can take a demographic criteria and say 20 to 30, what kind of employee, for example? maybe 30 to 40. What kind of employee, for example? Maybe 50 to 60. You can find a way to categorize that works for your organization and your industry. So you are not bound by what others have done. But what you're bound by is a principle of employee segmentation. But remember, you need to have no more than 5 segments. If you go too far, it will be 7. But we actually recommend 3 to 5. So when you are creating employee personas, don't have 10 personas. You will not manage. Don't have 20. You will not manage. 3 is ideal. 5. If you go too far, 7. So that was the third step, is to segment. Find a criteria that works for you. Is it educational? Is it demographic? And then work with it. The next step is now, we have talked of something called the employee persona card. You'll see a sample as we proceed. A persona card. That card has the detail that is on your screen. It has the name of the persona, the backstory. What is driving them? What is behind them? Is it generational, for example? A stock photo or a headshot? Demographic. We already mentioned this. The goals and motivations. The key frustrations. This is very important. What is likely to be frustrating a young person of 30 who has been on the same job for 10 years without movement? What do you think is running through their mind? Ask them. They will tell you. This job is a dead end. This job pays me just enough to pay rent and food and transport. They will tell you the frustrations. And then if we want to make sure we understand the employee, we have to respond to those frustrations. Again, then the expectations. Why do they come to work? You'll be shocked. Some don't come for the money. The money is important, all right, but it is not the only consideration. There are other sort of validity, professional growth, challenge, social belonging. If these are missing because of a wrong culture, then the employee starts disengaging. And I said something earlier called the great quitting, where people are refusing to join the workforce or they are leaving to pursue whatever their heart is telling them. And that is how we are losing talent. So we want to know that we can make the workplace a hospitable place. And I'm not forgetting that we ask the question, must it be a physical place or it can be virtual? Please remember that. We move to the step 5. Now, you have done that. Again, remember, these personas that we are creating, we have said 3 to 5, max 7. Themselves are not fixed. They need to keep changing. They need to evolve. Why? There are generational changes. There are epochs. There are periods where certain trends predominate. When the periods change, the trends also change. So we are telling you that even those personas keep coming back to them. For example, in our age, it was the done thing that when you're 25 or so, you get married. But for now, that may not be the case. So our 25s, those years, would mostly be married. But you'd be having here 35, 40 who are not married, and they're okay with it. It is a decision they have made, and it is acceptable. So this takes us to one of what Mike had mentioned, that we talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Somebody has decided that they are not getting married, but they have kids or they don't have. But that's their life. So we should not make it hostile to them because our ideal is married employees at 40 or at 30. No, we must remember inclusion and diversity. So these personas have to keep changing. Good. We are doing the last step in the creation of personas. Then I can take a quick pause and allow for any feedback, because if I go too long, we might again forget. So I'll just, when I finish this 6th step, we can see if there's any quick feedbacks in terms of questions, comments, or anything like that. Now, having done the 5, you go back to consult again with colleagues and even with experts and with, when I say colleagues, you can also discuss outside your company. Knowledge is not company-based. So it is okay to consult another HR expert in Vika or Eldoret or Kisumu or Mombasa. It is okay. Have a professional discussion. So when we normally have events such as those that IHRM so often does for us, part of the idea is when we meet, can we discuss? By the way, these are my personas. 4. Have you done personas? Yes. So how are you doing it? Then we co-learn one from the other. So it is okay to talk to your colleagues within the organization. It is also okay to consult with colleagues outside the organization, just to see. By sharing and engaging, we can maximize the impact and the effectiveness of the personas. Remember, the persona is a way of segmenting the employee, is a way of growing with the employee. So somebody can migrate from one persona when it was 20 to 30, and now they've gone to another persona. They are no longer entry-level employees. Now they are mature HODs. Their fears, their frustrations, their expectations have completely changed. So if you continue treating them the same, if you continue giving one instrument called an employee satisfaction survey, where they all have to fill, then you might start discovering that you're using what is called a scattergun technique. One size fits all. But the other side is what we're suggesting. One size does not fit all. People are different. People are unique. So if you do this, you can develop 3 to 5 personas, which we can see then how it's going to evolve as we continue the discussion. I'm tempted to just take a quick brief and see if there are any quick comments or feedback so that we know that we are together and we can address as they are still fresh. So Mike, in case of any questions or comments, please, we can take like 5 minutes or so, if at all, and then we see. Thank you.
Okay, I've not seen a reaction, and I'm opening up to members maybe to if you have a reaction. But on my end, I would like to ask, like when we are doing the employee journey mapping,
Yes.
Can we also integrate things like psychometric tests?
Interesting. I hear you already. There's a difference of opinion in terms of demographics. As a young person, you are more tech savvy, so you see you're thinking ahead of me. I was not there yet myself. You could. However, it is not something the employee should feel anxious about. When you ask somebody to fill a psychometric test, typically it is a test. And the test is, so why are they testing me? So what if I fail? For what purpose will they use the results thereof? So you could, if you find a way to do it in a way that does not alienate the employees. Generally, it is not used, but there is nothing to prevent any creativity coming in. So if you find it can work for you, what I suggest, Mike, have a focus group. When I mentioned 10, 15, not more than 15. Work with them. Subject them to the test. If they are honest, ask their feedback. Before you roll it out to the others, just see. If they resist the psychometric, keep it away. If they find it interesting, by all means. So all these are a creativity that can come into the process, so long as it works for you. There's a lot of room for creativity. That's my my answer to that.
Okay. Any other member with the question, or we can proceed?
We can proceed.
Okay, Amos, you can proceed.
That's okay. Thank you, guys. I hope you're there. Don't drop out on me. We will want to quickly do this together. It's just 4. Let's see what we can do by 4:30. Good. So we go to the next slide. Type of employees, personas, we have already mentioned them, but you can have socializers. These are employees who are most outgoing and very driven. If you use this is a sociological classification. Sociological. What is that? Based on their social behavior. So one is a socializer. The other one is a tasker. They are quieter and more composed. They just do their work quietly. no fuss. The other one is a builder. Who are these? They are warm, they are friendly, emotionally intelligent, and diplomatic. They are the peacemakers. They are the people who keep the group together. They are the consensus builders. There are people like this everywhere we work. Then there are coasters. Who is a coaster? They are more pessimistic and prone to stress. They always see where things could go wrong. They hang around. They are not the ones to carry the heavy burden, but they're always worrying. Another one is the achiever. They are moody, they are high energy, obsessive, and sometimes distracted. You find a way to define, build a profile of what categories work for you. So this is just one example. There's another example, next screen, which comes from Cisco. But again, this is for illustration only. Again, we repeat, as professionals, we are not bound to adopt as is. Always a better way is to create or otherwise adapt. Not adopt, adapt, which means pick what is there and change it to make it work for you. According to this is Cisco. They had 5 personas. Remember, we said 3 to 5 is ideal. One is what is called highly mobile, such as salespeople, account managers, systems engineers. What does mobile mean? They change jobs like clothes. They will come and go. There are occupations or levels that the attrition rate is very high. So that's number one. Number two, they called them campus mobile. Who are this? BDMs, executives, manufacturing, and logistics. Why did they call them that? You have to ask your question, because it might not work for you or for me. Number three, there's a remote or distance collaborator. These are people who don't have to come to work. They can come, but they don't have to. An analyst just needs the data. If they sit with the data, they will crunch it out and they'll give you insights. Their customer service, for example, we now have customer service centers, which are outsourced. These are people who don't even work for us. They sit somewhere else, but all our inquiries and phone calls are routed to them. So you see, they are very well suited to remote working. Then there was what they found they called the neighborhood collaborator. Engineers, finance staff, and many managers. What do they mean, neighborhood? They need to drop in. They need to physically come in to sort you out every once in a while. If you are in software and my computer is refusing to work, you will give me instructions on the phone. But if they don't work, you have to come. Then there are what are called the workstation anchored. These are people who have to sit on their desk to get their jobs done. Whereas the marketing manager is 75–80% out there, not in the office. This other guy, the workstation anchored, has to be there every day. Administrative staff, for example, software and the network engineers, they have to be there. Those are just examples. I challenge you to get the concept and get categories that works for you, your organization, and your industry. Okay, we proceed. Now, when we are creating profiles, we call them employee profiles. This is actually sort of a repetition. We are segmenting. Please have a criteria. Is it behavior, sociological behavior? Is it demographics, their ages? Is it the career progression? They are young, they are mature, they are managers, they are executives. You find a way that works for you. So you segment, then you create the persona, and we say the persona is an identity, which you describe by a name, by a photo, by characteristics, by fears, by inspirations. You describe that shortly in something we call the persona card. You include key insights. What works for them? For example, the younger people don't like too much structure. They don't like too much authority. They prefer flatter organizations. They prefer a little more room to do their work. And then use visuals. You illustrate. I am sorry, my work was not illustrated. I'm not a very visual person. But the current generation especially, you need to also incorporate visuals, pictures, graphics, and stuff. Let's proceed, please. Now, on your screen is an example of a persona card. Nothing scary, nothing complicated, but very insightful once you fill it. So on the top left corner, you will have a photo. Then you have the persona name. Then you have the age. All this is helping you to capture, to freeze, and to describe what kind of employee are we trying to understand here. So it has the employee has an age, gender, a role or position, department, years of experience. All those demographics help you to capture what kind of employee is this. Now, then you come to the right side and you say, what are the goals, preferences, and needs of this persona? What works for them? Career goals. Do they want to become CEO? Or do they want to make money? Or do they want to make a name? Or do they want to master a technical field so that they can move on? So that is goals and preferences and needs. Then there are challenges and obstacles. Challenges and obstacles. What is likely frustrating for them? What don't they like? Maybe you are too much into procedures and systems and they hate it. Maybe you are too much into timekeeping and they hate it. They want flexi time and you insist on 8 to 5. You just want to know. What is their personality and work style? Very interesting. As a young person working for a local publishing house many years ago in the early 2000s, one of my assistants was a young man called Emmanuel. Emmanuel was very bright, but he was very crazy. Anytime he reports to the office, he spends between morning and 10 watching movies online. And when the boss comes around to ask, he says, this is how I relax. He does not hide. He does not run. He doesn't really work. But when he has taken his tea, he works like 3 people. He's never late. His work is high quality. There are employees like this. So you want to know everybody's work style. Somebody works best in the morning. Somebody works best in the afternoon. Somebody works best alone. Somebody works best in company. What is their working style? And finally, what do colleagues say about them? If it's a demographic persona, what do people say about the Gen Zs? Maybe we say they are rebellious. Maybe we say they are fearless. Pick those words, because those words help us to place a finger on exactly what kind of employee we are discussing. So this is an example of a persona card, and we can also share a template, or you can use this as well, so that then it can help you to start the journey of creating employee personas. We proceed. We are almost done. This is just an example, and this is borrowed from elsewhere. I did not make this. Remember, the things we were saying is what is now on your screen. On the top left corner, there's a photo. How does a typical teenager look? Something like this. How does a typical HOD look? Something like the other. So you have a photo, and then you have descriptions. So this sort of just depicts in summary. You see, it's a card, which means it's a one-pager. In that one page, you compress information about the persona. We are talking persona now. It's a segment of employees. So what works for them? What do people say? What are their fears? What are their aspirations? All those are captured here. So this is an example, and this is something you can do. If once you get the blank card, you're able to fill out, and then you can have some graphics just to illustrate. And you can talk to your data guys, and they can give you data. How many of the young people do we have? What is their profile? What do they want, etc. So this is just an example to illustrate how a field card can look like. We proceed. Next is a similar card for a different persona. That was one persona. This is another persona. As you can see from the photo, This is very youthful, probably more useful than the other. And then you can have some graphics illustrating their career, for example, how long they normally stay for one employer, maybe 3 to 5 years. So you know, unless you do something unique in the next 3 to 5 years, they will have left. So ask yourself, do you want them to go? If you don't want them to go, what can you do as a HR person? So this is just another example of a field persona card, which sort of summarizes all that we have been saying. I think we have just 2 slides to go. Now, this is now an employee journey map example. All those was how to do it. Now, this you need. Whatever is on your screen now, this is all you need. Once you've understood all we have been saying, now this is all you need. The employee goes through at least 5 steps. Remember, we said something called the employee life cycle model. The employee is recruited, is onboarded, is developed, is retained, and finally exits. Those are how many personas? 5 already, if you use this. There's the new employee who's just being recruited. There's the one who is being onboarded, and onboarding is longer than just the orientation. It could be 1 or 2 years. They're just settling in. Then there's the one who has settled and now is growing. Development includes training. Development includes performance management. So what are the issues around those? Retention. This is an employee who is mature and wants to grow, to rise in their career. How do we manage the career progression side? Now, I was reading that across left to right. But if you read that downwards, then you say employee goals and expectations. This persona, what are they seeking to achieve? And what do they expect? If I'm a young person coming into a new company, what are my fears and expectations? Watanilipa? Will they keep me? Wataniconfirm? Will they give me a salary raise? Ama kuna ukabila humo ndani? I have my fears and concerns as a young employee, which the other personas do not have. So there's the employee goals and expectations. Then there's the process. HR guys, recruitment does not start when I join your company. Recruitment starts when I first hear of the name or the brand of the company. If you hear Safaricom is recruiting, you want to run there. Why? There's already a brand they have built that is attractive. So even for us, please remember, recruitment is not about calling people for interviews. It's not about putting ads on the newspaper. No, that is not it. Recruitment starts way before by building a brand that people can join, that people can buy into. So that process has also emotional feelings. So there's a process, then there are the touch points. I've already alluded to that. For me to apply to join, say, Kenya Breweries, what are the touch points before I even join? How did I hear of it? What are my feelings around the brand? The people that I know that work there or relate to that, how do they look to me? Are they satisfactory? Touch points. Then the feelings. Then you just go ahead and you feel this. You feel them how? By talking to employees, by engaging other managers, by researching, and by continually updating, and by also conducting what we had called employee focus groups. I think we are on to the last slide now. We will not take too much of your time, guys. The last slide, Mike. Are we there, Mike? This is another example. Again, this is not done by me. I picked this just to illustrate, to see what else can go into the card. So this is different because here they're talking of higher onboarding, the first 90 days, the first year, ongoing, and exit. So they've taken another way of segmenting. The one I prefer most is the one I've just explained previously, that an employee goes through at least 5. And if you want to do 7 steps, it is okay. But remember, we said personas must not be more than 7. So the more steps you put, the more personas you must develop. So you would rather compress. So you have less personas that are more manageable and that you can work with. So once you have the card and you have your colleagues and your focus groups and your peers, you are ready to start segmenting your employees and then describing your employees using a persona card such as the one on your screen. Now the very last slide. That is it. My summary quickly. We have done satisfaction surveys. They are not working. Why? They're done once or twice a year. They are filled by all employees. They assume that we are the same and that we are the same throughout our life cycle. We are saying there are other ways of getting the employee voice, of making the employee see that they are valued, that their voice is listened to. One of those ways, ladies and gentlemen, is called employee experience journey mapping. This becomes an ongoing process, and it is complemented by 1, pulse surveys. What is a pulse survey? We said you can do 3 questions, flash them. Something comes, 3 questions, flash them. So you can do pulse surveys. We talked of exit surveys. We also talked of stay surveys. But the clincher, which I have not said before, but I'm saying as I finalize, please, whatever you do, we must ensure that the feedback we get from the employees, we implement them. How do we do that? My experience, we must ensure we turn them into KPIs. We allocate them to somebody who takes responsibility. And we can then measure and track their achievement. If we don't do that, it becomes like the old suggestion boxes where you go put your suggestion there and nothing happens. So we are out to get the employee feelings, fears, and aspirations, make them actionable. How do you do that? By deriving KPIs out of them. And KPIs are always smart. Assign them to particular people or people in the department and hold them accountable to the implementation of the insights from those feedbacks. Then we can capture what is called the voice of the employee. So what we have said in a sum is satisfaction surveys are good, but they are not enough. We must have other ways of capturing the employee voice, because if we don't do, we will not be responsive and the company will lose talent, and the rest who remain will disengage, and therefore our practice as HR will be going down instead of going up. I rest my case, guys, and again I open the floor for any questions or feedback. If it is clear, or if there's any need for clarity or any further requests beyond this session, I'll be willing. I'll also be willing to share some interesting reading. My style is every time we have a talk, I have a core text. So through Mike, I will share something that we can read, which is not necessarily on this, but relates to managing the employee experience. I rest my case and I open the floor to questions and comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, George, for that session. Quite insightful.
Amos, oh, you baptized me, Mike. Hey, it's Amos.
Thank you, Amos, for that session. That was quite insightful. Asante sana. So members, if you have any question, you can just unmute and be able to pose your question. Maybe on my end, what I would ask is that okay, Kate, you can go ahead.
Hey, Mike, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I want to appreciate the guys who have joined, and mine is actually to appreciate what Amos have done. It is very informative. I actually joined from second one. That means immediately that he joined. and I am well informed, and I'm sure all of us, we have been informed. Amos, thank you very, very much. It is actually a day to remember. Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Back
you.
to you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
asante
much,
sana,
Kate.
asante sana, Kate. Lillian Akeo, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for the session. Maybe just a quick question to Mike. What are some of the ways that the HR function can be a remote position? Just maybe a few pointers.
You're talking in terms of working remotely at home?
Yes, because I've seen one of his points in one of the slides whereby HR has been mentioned as a function that can be a remote position. Is it something that is possible?
Okay, it is possible, but I will prefer to look at it in the terms of being hybrid, because HR as a profession, we are used to interacting with people physically, but then again, you'll find there are certain administrative duties that we can just do them remotely. Be it maybe we are doing contract renewals, letters. Okay, nowadays we do interviews. Maybe the initial interviews you can do it online, and then again maybe the final interview we do it physically. Staff will really prefer maybe to see us when they have their issues, that human face. But yes, it cannot be entirely remote. You may look at it maybe being hybrid. There are times maybe you might be required to be in the office. There are times that there are those duties that you can just do it from a remote place.
Wonderful. May
Thank
I
you
add
so
something there?
Yes, please.
The best way to approach this, guys, is to do what is called process mapping. The idea is, under our suite of functions as HR, we need to know what can be done remotely and what cannot be done. And the only way to know that is to map out the key processes. And one way of mapping them is what I've given as the 5 steps. For example, onboard recruitment, for example, onboarding, for example, training and development. So under each process, those are processes. Then there are activities. There are tasks. Now, under those tasks, there are tasks which can be performed remotely. There are others which have to be done in person. So the professional way to approach that is not a feeling thing, is to do what we call process maps. And this is a challenge I also want to throw to us, that many of our organizations have not done it. Every major process should be mapped. So when somebody comes to take accountability for that process, then we know what they're responsible for. And some of it we normally get when we do job analysis and evaluation. We know the process, we know who is in charge, we know the tasks, and then we can derive now KPIs, which respond to the processes and the associated tasks. And that is why people are moving away from the generic and fairly general and static JDs into something a little more specific and which is alive, which can keep changing. So my quick addition was just to have process maps, and then it will help us know what can be outsourced, what can be done remotely, and what is core that needs a face-to-face interaction. I hope that helps. Thank you.
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other person with the question before maybe they do respond? I would really like to ask, like, right now, Amos, we are bringing on board different categories of staff.
Yes.
But the needs of the baby boomers is much different from what you would expect the millennials have put as a priority. Right now, we are now having the Gen Zs, the ones who are currently rioting. So how do you like approach the issues of each of these categories of staff? Because if I'm to give an example of my workplace, there was a time that we
Yes.
tried a work from home initiative whereby staff were allowed, you have a schedule, within a week there's a day that some certain staff members of staff are working from home. We're just trying to see how can we be able maybe to save maybe on transportation, maybe the work-life balance, they can be able to do 1 or 2 things. But then again, there was a generation of staff within our management that were like, this one cannot work. How do people work from home? That can't work at all. So how are you able to like to navigate those issues?
Interesting. These are the challenges we face in our age and time. Two things. One, it is possible for the young people to work from home. That I can assure you. But there has to be a model. There has to be a model that we apply, and that model has to be live. We are able to keep changing and updating as we understand better. What I have seen, and a professional colleague is developing just such a model. What he has done for now is, let's say you have 20 employees. Then they each have KPIs. And then he says, anybody who meets 70% of their KPIs can have 30% time working from home. So one, it is tied to performance. That's number one. And anybody who meets 70% of their KPIs for a 3-month period or a 6-month period, not just a month, you get. So let's say an employee has excelled for 6 months. They earn the right, if they so choose, to spend 30% of their time away from the office. The catch is, if their KPIs flag, if they go down on their performance, they lose that and they have to come back fully. So that's one way, one aspect of that model. The other aspect is there are goals. Even when you are home, there are deliverables. You can work from 4 in the morning to 10, that's okay, but they are deliverables. So you cannot work with this kind of remote work if your KPIs are not clear. So this takes us back to the whole discourse about performance management. You can only work away from the office if you have a working performance management system. And this is what the marketing management has always had. Most salespeople, marketing people are never in the office, but they work. How do we know they work? We give them targets. They tell us how many clients they've called, how many clients they have visited, how many clients they have retained, how many new clients they have brought in. So we know they are working. So you must have a working performance management system. You must have clear and trackable KPIs. So one, it is tied to performance. You earn it. You have to do deliverables. And 3, you must be flexible. Even when you are taking your 30%, for example, at home, there could be need to come into the office. For example, a client calls and requests for a meeting. You can't say, this is my 3 days out of the office or 1 week out of the office, I cannot come. There's a caveat that if the client needs, then you must come. Finally, when you do not work, you lose it. And again, it is elective. We are not telling you not to come, but we are saying after you've done this, you have the right to work away from home. And the kids love it, believe me, because they need to have a life. If we push them with the targets 8 to 6, 7 every day, they lose work-life balance. They can't go to parties, they can't visit, they can't have relationships. And then workplace becomes a tomb for them. And that's why they're running away from the workplace, because it's becoming a tomb for their aspirations in their lives. They need to know that they can take a Friday off. So you don't tell them you can't. You just tell them, fine. You want to be off 2 days a week? Wonderful. But do ABC. So I do know this is working. It is challenging for larger organizations. It's easier for smaller. But you can start with a pilot, work out a model, have a pilot department or division, and then if it works, you can roll it out. But again, I repeat, the key thing, tie it to performance. We will not pay you when you stay home and not delivering anything. How do you know you are delivering? By having clear KPIs that we can keep track of and that will ensure that you are actually working. And also ensure flexibility. If we need to recall you or you are required, we do not argue. You come, you do what has to be done, and then you can go back. Again, I hope that helps, guys.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Any other clarification that you require? Please, you can just unmute and pose your question. Okay, I will take the silence as being that we are contented with the training session. I'll take this opportunity to thank you, Amos, so much for that wonderful presentation. I'll be sure to share with those who have requested for the same. There are those who have put up their email addresses on the chat. I'll share the presentation with you. But then again, Amos, thank you so much. We have really been we have really planned a lot. It has taken us time for us to get here to conduct this training. And I really appreciate you taking your time to really take us through this insightful training. Asante sana. For the members that have logged in, asanteni sana. I know we have taken your afternoon, but it has been worthy that we have gone through this training. Asanteni sana. And even as you go back to your workplaces, as you go and plan for activities that you're going to do in the half two of this year, that is beginning in the next week, from the training, from the insight that we have gotten from this training, go and ensure that your employees do enjoy working in the organization, and that is how you're able to retain them and then keep the talent that you have in place. Recruitment is a very tiresome and expensive process. Being looking at the aspect of the loss of the organizational knowledge, the time, the amount of money you spend in the recruiting, and actually even getting the right fit candidate for that organization. So thank you so much. I wish you guys you enjoy your afternoon. Let's meet again in the next session that we'll be planning. We'll talk about, we'll inform you of which topic that we'll be covering. But asanteni sana, let's keep supporting the IHRM Mount Kenya South. I don't know if I have my members on board. Maybe they can greet the members as they exist. Kina Beryl, Leonida, Muturi.
I'm here, Mike. This is Jane.
Yes.
This is Leonida.
Thank you. Thank you.
Abdul Karim.
Thank you, Abdul.
This is Beryl.
Thank you.
This is Kate. Hi, Amos.
Long time, Kate. Good to know you are here. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. Mike, thank you for organizing. Keep up the spirit.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Amos.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. I will share the text as well. So there's something else, a co-reading that I will also share alongside. I will send it through Mike and you can all get it. A book, actually, a textbook.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Be blessed.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Okay, so asanteni, bye and enjoy your evening, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Keep safe.
You too. You too.
Bye.
All right.